Chapter 4. Jessica's heart pounded in her ears. With no place to run, she followed her cousin. They entered an arched wooden door, walking through a small cobblestone hallway leading to a wooden one. It seemed very odd that such a beautiful structure had a mundane entrance. They turned a corner into a grand white hall, and Jessica realized they must have used a servant's entrance. If there were servants. She had so many questions, but kept silent, her eyes drinking in details of the hallway. The stucco walls were textured in a rainbow of colors. Elegant scrollwork traced up the walls like the lace wings of butterflies. The two teens passed through several halls and entered a bright chamber with a grand staircase and a 2-story foyer. Marble tiles patterned the floor. Paintings, sculptures, and tapestries decorated the back hall. The artwork depicted epic battles and beautiful warriors. One small tapestry hung at the entranceway, illustrating a woman glowing in energy and covered in rose vines. A single phrase had been sewn onto the base of the weaving. "Goddess Aurora, protect our home." Jessica found the room fascinating, but there was a strange silence to the castle and an uncomfortable number of vermin. There were more rats and insects than Jessica could count. As big as Jessica's hand, terrifying spiders spun glistening nests across the statues. Their shiny exoskeletons were black and patterned in neon stripes. Slime trails streaked behind the critters as they moved across the old ornate wallpaper. Jessica's skin crawled. Misa seemed untroubled by these things as she bolted up the staircase.
"Taryn!"
she shouted.
"Nico!"
They traveled down a red-carpeted hallway. Stagnant, warm air permeated the hallways, and Jessica's sweatshirt and jeans felt too warm. Painted portraits lined the hallways. Some of the figures human, most not. All the doors were closed except for one at the end of the hall. The familiar trill of violins echoed through the corridor, and Jessica was instantly entranced. They walked ahead to the source of the music. The room was bright with sunshine. The cousins entered an ornate sitting room decorated with gold filigree. 2 tall, skinny men leaned on chairs, dressed in dark pants and light, billowy shirts. They were older, like Misa, and Jessica would have guessed them to be in college. One was white-skinned, his hair long and fine, as pale as his face. His features were human, and his eyes a striking violet. The other boy was like no one Jessica had seen in her entire life. If you had forced Jessica to name his species, she would have been stumped, but the word cat came to mind. His skin was a strange gray-blue shade, like the dark elves from Lee's favorite art books. Faint stripes lined the side of his face, and black delineated his eyes like a natural eyeliner. The young man's mouth was unusual. He had a thin black line from his dark upper lip to the underside of his nose, and fanged teeth. The strange man wore long, delicate chain earrings that dangled from his pointed ears. The school bus and the gray misery of Earth vanished. The world consisted of nothing but the sunlit gilt lounge, the warmth of summer, the strangers, and the violin song.
"Nico! Taryn!"
Misa exclaimed.
"I would like to introduce you to my cousin, Jessica Vance. Jessica, this is my brother Taryn."
She gestured to the white man.
"And also our dearest friend, Nico Varin Aristo Verdian. We call him Nico."
The music ceased. "Holy goddess Aurora!" The fiddle fell to Nico's side. "Raven Wolf," Jessica said softly. "My last name is Raven Wolf. My mother is divorced, but—"
"Not here, my dear,"
Misa grinned, waving a finger.
"Divorce is not a thing. You are either a bastard child or your father is dead."
"He's not dead."
"Then you are Jessica Vance, bastard child."
Jessica was puzzled and a little offended. Setting down his violin, Taryn smiled warmly. He clasped his hands together, bowed his head, and splayed his fingers in what Jessica took as a sign of greeting. Then he hugged her. "I am so happy you have been returned to us," he said. Jessica had never felt such a sincere hug. Taryn seemed to emanate love and warmth. "Please, sit." Taryn gestured to the couches. "I will fetch you some tea. You must be exhausted." Nico was still dumbfounded. "I never thought you could do it, Misa," he whispered. "The magic focus needed to break gate magic like that. And you just being a dream spinner. I did not think your weed-addled brain could handle it." Misa gave him a friendly punch in the shoulder.
"Don't underestimate me, Nico."
"How is Aunt Lily?" Taryn poured a cup of warm brewed liquid. The smell was intoxicating. Taryn's movements were deliberate, smooth, and cautious. He reminded Jessica of the cats that frequented Lee's home. "She's okay, I guess," Jessica replied, blinking. "I'm very confused. Why am I here? Why did I not remember this place?" Jessica accepted the delicate brown ceramic cup. A little voice of warning started to creep into Jessica's brain as she sat on the red plush couch. She was too relaxed. There was something strange about the whole experience. She looked around the room, noticing details like the gold on the light switches and the harp in the corner. It reminded her of a French palace.
"Jessica, we need to talk to you about your mother."
Misa sat next to her. Nico finally took a chair, his bewilderment gone. Instead, he crossed his arms and sat back, eyes narrowed. Jessica noticed his awe melting into annoyance.
"Jessica,
you're here because we need your help," Misa said.
"And not just us, hundreds of people who are in dire need."
Jessica took a sip of the bitter tea. She didn't like tea. She didn't know why she was drinking it. It only seemed impolite not to accept their hospitality.
"I apologize for shoving you through the gate," Misa said. "But you would have never believed me unless you had actually seen the castle."
Jessica nodded.
"You may have noticed that things are a bit quiet here, a bit in disrepair. That is because the castle is empty, save for us three,"
Misa explained, taking a cup of tea for herself.
"Nico is the great-great-grandson of the last true Lord of Aurumice. This is his castle."
"But I am not a lord," Nico was quick to point out. "My family may own this building and the lands, but I have power over nothing." Misa waved him away, finding his aside irrelevant.
"The problem with the castle is that it's stuck under an energy field. Certain people can pass through. Myself, Nico, Taryn, your mother, and likely you. I know this because it was my father who built the energy field to protect us from harm."
Misa took a deep breath.
"As a byproduct, this energy field and some terror magic pushed away the castlefolk. We want to destroy the energy field so they can come home."
Jessica blinked. It was all very strange. "So what do I have to do with this?" Jessica asked.
"Your mother has the key to unlocking the field. It's a clear glass ball called the shadow sphere. You basically toss it into the field and the magic is dispersed."
Jessica shook her head. "I've never heard of a shadow sphere," she said. "I need to ask my mother. In fact, she's going to be home soon and she'll be worried about me." Jessica's worry intensified as she realized she had been lulled into a trap. She didn't know these people or this place. "Calm yourself, Jessica," Taryn said. "Your mother is skilled at traveling. She'll be here soon to get you." Taryn's words sounded pleasant.
"In the meantime, I have so much to show you,"
Misa grinned.
"Starting with the fair in town."
"The fair? Are you a crazy tilly reel?" Nico growled. "Taking an Earth girl out into Trabalis? Where is Lily? Why didn't she come back for us? Why did she abandon us?" Misa put her arm around Jessica, enveloping the girl in the aroma of cinnamon.
"Jessica doesn't know the answers to these questions," she said.
"She hardly knew who I was. Stop being a blusterbelch,"
I want to focus on showing Jessica our world.
But Misa waved his concerns away.
Speaking of which, she said to Jessica, you need some new clothing, and I have the perfect wardrobe set aside just for you.
For me? Jessica was embarrassed. You hardly know me. You didn't know you would find me.
I am an unrelenting optimist,
Misa said, standing.
Come on, let's pick out clothing you'd like, and then take a little ride into town.
As soon as they left the room, Nico stood flabbergasted. Taryn busied himself by putting his violin back in its case. Looks like we're heading to the fair, he frowned. And in this oppressive heat. You should not do that to that girl. Nico's anger rose. She has no idea what's going on. Do what? Taryn loosened the bow. I see the little mage trick you're pulling on her emotions. It's not right to mess with a person's mind like that. You never complained about my abilities before, Taryn said. Convincing the bake shop to give you pastries is completely different. That girl obviously wants to go home, and she knows something is odd. We are keeping her against her will. She is still my cousin, and no harm will come to her. Taryn replied. Ignoring Misa for so long is not right either. Nico, I admit, I never thought in a million centuries that Misa would be able to reopen the gate to Earth. I don't know how she gained that knowledge, and I don't want to know. Like it or not, we are part of Misa's irrational scheme. What you are doing to Jessica is not right. Nico gestured angrily. She will be fine. Your Aunt Lily is who we want to talk to. Why waste time going to the fair? Let's just go to Earth. Taryn looked as if he was about to speak, then stopped. Taryn was Nico's best friend, his closest ally, his most trustworthy confidant, and an arrogant ass. Nico narrowed his eyes. Because here you have the advantage, Nico said. You can sway her emotions and convince her to do anything. You make me sound like a demon and an idiot. Of course, if I influenced my aunt, as soon as she crossed the gate back to Pennsylvania, she'd realize what I'd done. But then again, Aunt Lily should not have abandoned us, Taryn growled. She could have come through the gate at any time. But her gate was locked. She couldn't get through on the Earth side. There's still the New York one. Why didn't she go there? Aunt Lily was supposed to protect us. She was supposed to use the shadow sphere. If my father couldn't dismantle the force field, Lily ran instead. So she should come here to explain herself. I want an answer. This has nothing to do with Jessica. Misa has a reason for taking her to Tribalis. Let's just listen to her for once. And if I chose not to help you bring her to the city, Nico glared. And what's your alternative? Taryn laughed. What are you rescuing her from, Nico? We're talking about a stroll in the town, not a death march to Brighton. Taryn, I am begging you not to make a muck with that girl's emotions. The white-haired boy did not reply. He left the room, leaving Nico standing alone.